Welcome back. Today we're going to do a steampunk project. I was always fascinated by these little the lamps and all the little kinds of art that people are making, you know, basically called steampunk. You know, it's reminiscent of the Victorian age when the steam engines came out, and it's a little bit of sci-fi, a little bit of modern art. And today's going to be my interpretation of a steampunk candelabra. So I have some parts here. You can make this any way you want. Again, this just kind of came out of my head. Most of the stuff that I'm using I had laying around. I think I spent maybe 25 bucks on a 10-foot piece of 1/2-inch copper pipe that I needed to cut up. I did cut up a lot of this stuff ahead of time because that's kind of boring sitting here watching me cut them up. But I'll explain to you, you know, the sizes that I cut them and what kind of fittings that I'm using. And let's get started. Let me get this out of the way. So basically, this is the only tool that you'll need. Well, actually you'll need two things, but this is the first one. This is called a pipe cutter. Now you could use one like this. They also have a mini one. And basically what you do is you mark the length of pipe that you want, put it in here, and just barely twist this. You just want to nick it, okay, and start turning it. As you turn it 2 times or so, you want to tighten this a little bit. I don't know if you can see it, but I'm doing it as I turn it. And that cuts it right off. Gives it a nice little chamfer on the edge there. Now, if you don't want to buy one of these, you certainly could do this with like a hacksaw or a Dremel. But to be honest with you, that's really not the way to go. That'll take forever, and you won't have a nice chamfer here. So that's how you cut the pipe. You'll see this as it all starts to come together. So here I have 2 T's. 2 little pieces that I cut. As you can see, they're not even the same size because all they need to do is just attach the T's to each other. And I have this one length here. I can tell you how long each piece is in case you want to know. This one's 2.5 inches long, okay? And this is just going to be used to set everything up square. So you want to make sure that you clean all the ends, because we're going to be epoxying this together, okay? We're not going to be soldering it. I mean, you could, but that'll be a nightmare in itself. Plus you'll see all the solder joints. So you just clean it till it's a bright color, okay? Now this piece isn't actually going to get soldered here. I'm just using this to make sure everything is straight. So now you want to make sure you have a flat surface. Right here I just have a piece of scrap plywood with a piece of wax paper on top of it. You can use a little rubber mallet. I'm going to mix up some JB Weld and we're going to start to get this together. There's going to be a lot of mixing and a lot of sticking and a lot of dry time. You're not going to need much. Don't mix a ton of it at one time. We'll just do a little bit at a time. Okay, so we're going to do one of these T's first. Now you're going to put it on the inside. Just a thin coat. And get one of your little spacers. And just tap that in, okay? You want to make sure that the other one fits flush here. So we're good on that one. We'll come over to this side. These have all been cleaned like I showed you with that green Scotch-Brite. Make sure. Okay, we're good. So we can set those two aside. Maybe I didn't mix exactly enough of this, huh? Better to have a little bit less than to waste it. Because we're going to want each one of these components that we start to put together to dry before we get to the next one. I'm going to put this in here, and this in here. Get that out of the way. Now that's what this is for. We're going to put this on here, and then we want to put this little coupling on top of here, because this in here and this in here needs to be the same space, so we could put a square on it and make sure that this is standing straight up. Okay, so that's perfect. So now we're going to let this set up. It only takes about 15 minutes or so. Well, actually it says it'll apply immediately, will set in 4 minutes, right? But we're going to give this a good 10-15 minutes to set up, and then we'll come back to the next step. We're back. So now we could remove this piece. Like I said, that was just to make sure that this was all straight and this was coming up perpendicular. So solid as a rock. Next, we're going to be putting on this side. Okay, this piece is 2 3/16, and then these are just 90-degree elbows, and then again 2 little pieces that I just made so we can attach them. Okay, so there's going to be a sequence where you have to put this together, right? We're going to want to put this together all at the same time here, so we can move this out of the way for a moment, and we're going to mix our JB Weld. Hopefully we mixed enough this time. Get a little on the outside, just wipe it off. As you can see, I put gloves on. This stuff's a pain to get off of you. Okay, looks good. So now we'll stick this one in. Oh, this one goes in here. Let's make sure that fits all the way in, which it does. This one I could see is shorter, so it'll be fine. Stick this one in. Actually going to need a little bit more of this. Clock is ticking. Oh no, hurry up, hurry up. Okay, now you're going to want to fit this into here. Keep it down on a flat surface so that everything's on the same plane. Perfect. Alright, set that aside, and we'll get our other side, and we're going to do the same thing. there's our base. So we're going to let that set up, and we'll continue on to the next step. All right, I did a little pre-assembly. Okay, I just want to make note that all of these pieces that are coming out the top, they're all exactly the same size. They are sticking out 3/4 of an inch, and they go in a 1/2 inch. Okay? So you have to make sure that when you cut those that they're all exactly the same size. And then these units are going to go together like this. So we'll glue them up in a moment. One other thing I just want to mention with the base, since it's going to be pretty top heavy, we're going to have that valve on there. I have some of these slingshot balls. Just drop them in there. I think that's good. Okay, so we can move that base out of the way. Now we could glue these up. Make sure it's flat. I also want to mention that I cut this T down. That was the other tool I was mentioning in the beginning. I actually used a grinder. I'll explain why as soon as I get this together. Make sure everything's flat. Let's get our little bar here, put that in there so that's flat. This way this is in line, because if I didn't have this on the end here, see this coupling here, then this would tend to be down a little bit. You probably wouldn't notice it, but might as well do it right. This is why it's very important to have a flat piece of plywood or wood. Okay, so let me explain what I did here. Okay, this middle T, I cut off about 1/4 of an inch off of each side of this T. And what that did was, that allowed me to have the same distance between all of the tops. Okay, so we got from there to there, 3.5 inches. From this outside to this outside, 3.5. I mean, it's, you know, a hair off, but your eye's not going to be able to pick it up. And then 3.5. So now they're equidistant apart. Okay. Okay, so we're going to let that set up, and we'll continue on to the next step. All right, we're back. So this set up good. Everything is lined up. So we'll put this aside. Now comes the crazy part. You could, you know, also with this, you could have made this, you know, just 2 going up. You could have made just 1 going up. But, you know, my idea of a candelabra is 4. And I like the number 4. So now, again, with this base, you could have a piece coming straight up into the candelabra. But I decided that I wanted to add this valve. I just happen to have this valve that fit. Okay, so we're going to put this valve in here. And then I created these 45s and 90s to bring this back in line, basically almost with the center. Okay, so that's the way that's gonna look. So now we got to try to get that all epoxy together. So I'm going to start with this crazy piece. Again, you can make this as complicated or as simple as you like. It's your project. So we'll get some. Okay, we're going to use this piece here again, over here, so that stays at a level plane. So we'll start here on the top. I'll do that one at the next batch. Let's get this on here so we can make sure that this is nice and level. Let's double check that we didn't do anything wrong. I'm liking that. Okay, let's put this back on. Make sure that's sitting flat on there. Okay, we're going to let that set up. Alright, that's set up. Solid as a rock. Set that aside. Now comes the tricky part. We got to get this in here. Okay, but I don't have a way of knowing if it's perfectly straight, so I'm just going to have to eyeball it. Then I have to decide if I want it to come up this way and this to be this way or this way. Guess we'll just go for it and see what happens. Just eyeball it the best you can, because this valve is going to end up being on here. I guess we could put this on and see how it looks. This will end up being on here. Okay, we'll let that dry up, and we'll be back. We're closing in on this. Let's see if we can get the rest of this together and all lined up. Well, by the way, if you get something that's not exactly lined up, you can put a little heat on it from a torch and straighten it out. I had to do that on this top piece here. It was a little cocked, so I just heated it up ever so slightly and just moved it, and then the weld just resets. So let's get this valve on. Now it's just a matter of eyeballing it, making sure everything is straight. Okay, that's looking good. Alright, we'll let that set up and we'll be back. Alright, we're down to our final 2 sets of glue up. So many starts and stops, but it takes a little bit for this to set up. We're going to attach on top. Place that on here. Alright, I'll get a better shot. I'll reset up the camera. I'll get this nice and lined up. We'll let that dry and we shall return. Well, there it is. My Steampunk Candelabra. As you can see, I added some finishing touches to it. I'll explain that in a second. Those are homemade beeswax candles. I have a video on how I made beeswax candles. Those are just made from a skinnier PVC pipe than I used on the last ones. And it's not 100% done. I'm going to buff the whole thing with the green Scotch-Brite pad, get it all nice and shiny, and then I'm going to put a coat of clear on it. But I like the way it came out. It's got a funky look to it. And basically, these come right off the top. This is just a flange turned upside down, and the candle is just sitting in a coupling, so you could clean them. Place that on there, place that on there, and you're good to go. So I'll be back when it's all polished up and a coat of clear is on it, and we'll wrap this up. Well, there it is. It's all polished up. I left it at a satin finish. I decided I like that contrast better. Got my beeswax, homemade beeswax candles in there. Just turn that valve to the left and they'll light up. Just kidding. You need a match to light a candle. So there's my version of a Steampunk Candelabra with homemade beeswax candles. Nice funky design. Again, you just pop off candles and you could replace them easily. Take off this little flange cup to clean up the wax drippings. Well, there you go. Thanks for coming along, everyone. I appreciate all your views and all your comments. I hope you all are staying safe out there, and I thank you so much. We'll see you on the next one.